This week on IT SPARC Cast, Meta makes a bold gesture. TapTrap traps your traps on Android, and Google OS Rebuild builds your build before you can build it.
You did it.
Greetings and welcome to IT SPARC Cast. I'm your host, John Barger.
I'm your host, Lou Schmidt. Let's see what's really going on out there.
It's Monday, July 28th. IT SPARC Cast is a digest of the IT news over the last week with insights, opinions, and a little sarcasm from two experts, each with over 20 years of experience working in IT or for IT vendors. And now for the news bites. Okay, Lou, we got a really interesting article here.
You know, we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
And one of the challenges we have I got to say this episode is going to be a little bit more on security because this is good news for a change.
Yeah.
Thank you. We've talked a lot about how open source is one of the critical pillars of how all of our systems work and how are we going to secure this stuff. So can you talk us through what Google's doing here?
Yeah, this is great. And we are both big fans of open source, but open source does provide an attack vector, what's sometimes called supply chain attacks on source code, and people can inject code. A lot of times it's caught because there's a lot of good auditing going on, but it's all human-based auditing, and it's fallible. Code can be hidden and so forth. So what Google has done is they've launched a tool called OSS Rebuild. And what this is an AI-powered tool that automatically rebuilds packages from PyPI, which is a Python tool, NPM, and crates.io, which is a Rust-based tool. And it verifies their outputs based on the published artifacts using existing known good outputs. So therefore, if somebody does inject something and then the behavior changes, these tools should be able to detect it. This is an automated system. So that's what's great about this, is that as soon as somebody checks in code, it gets tested. So think of this as something that you could add to your existing QA process. So as soon as a build hits, first thing that happens is, did the compiler finish and got no errors? Then you move on to something like this, and then it moves on to the functional QA tool. So that's really what's exciting for me on this. So what can I do? It has the capabilities of detecting supply chain attacks. So this includes hidden extra code from published packages. So if you pull in a published package, if somebody introduces malicious code, or if it comes from a malicious build environment, if there's stealthy backdoor operations that are entered during compute time, all of those things that might not be caught by a human detector or might slip by somebody, are all done. Now, this is an enterprise utility, so this is going to enhance your existing tools. So that's why we're talking to you about it as an IT professional. You should be taking this to your engineering team and telling them this is something they should use to enhance their own security and offering to help them get it up and running in their environment. So this is something I'm really excited about. We've heard about supply chain attacks in the past, both on the software side and even on the hardware side. And this is just that next step forward to help protect us and really take those people that might be feeling unsafe about the nature of open source and give them one more layer of security and protection.
I think this is a really, really clever way to inject a new method of security into open source, because open source is notoriously, herding cats, really. Let's be honest. But if you think about it this way, Google was the first ever search engine that indexed open source. I don't know how many people know this, but when Google was still 2 servers sitting under a grad student's desk at Stanford, I used to use it to go after Linux resources. They were the first one to ever index this. So their entire operating model is built on open source. So they need to do this anyway. But what I think is really slick about this is that in opening this to other people, they get more eyes on the problem, right? If they see an anomaly and the system reports it upstream, they can isolate that anomaly quickly. Also, if you're the type of person in IT that's going to implement this, or engineering, you're going to start adding in the things you care about. And I would not be at all shocked if there's a way for them to figure out either for you to report, because it's in your best interest to do this, to report upstream, hey, we care about this, which is going to allow them to build out a map of what matters much more quickly. And I think
100%.
that is huge because though that's where they need to put their effort, right? That's where they need to build better analyzers, better sandboxes. Everything that you build in this comes up in a sandbox and is tested in a sandbox. So
And
it's
this
pretty
is the
safe.
kind of thing that we've been talking about. We've been talking about agentic AI that does tasks for you and makes life easier or better or faster or whatever it might be. This is the kind of thing that I think that GitHub and all kinds of other repositories need to start implementing. And especially if you think about something like GitHub, where you have the potential for lots of external actors to get involved. But I mean, if we look at what happened, just going to bring it back to the SolarWinds thing that happened, what is it, 4 or 5 years ago now, this is the kind of thing that would have helped prevent that, because that was what's called a supply chain attack, where bad actors got in through exposed password and started checking in code as SolarWinds, and then that code got put out into government facilities, corporate facilities, and put those companies at risk, and for a very short period of time gave SolarWinds a black eye. But this is the kind of thing that would help prevent that. So I'm really excited about it.
So yeah, just seeing this thing start, and obviously Google's already said we're going to expand this, but it even more important than that, because of the open source nature of the tool, because you can run this on Box, you can do this with your existing Git repositories. It can be expanded into other things, and I have a feeling this is going to become a very, very powerful tool we use to clean up the supply chain attacks. So we love giving you good news about security.
We do. We do. Now, we've got an interesting tidbit. Lou, why don't you talk about what Meta's doing?
Well, I found this one really interesting because we've seen this one noodle around for a while. So let me tell you what they did. The first peer-reviewed study on wrist-worn a detector that uses surface electromyography, which means a reader is on your wrist and it's reading the commands you're sending to your hand. Now, John pointed out when we were talking about this a little bit pre-show that the Apple Watch can do something similar, but this
At a much
was
lighter level, not nearly as sophisticated, but yeah.
but what this was is this wasn't just marketing going and saying that, yeah, we have this thing. This was an actual scientific study that was published in Nature. So if you've been watching us for a while, you know that we're sort of right now doing a series on hot takes on what the future is going to look like. I think it's possible, and John pointed this out, I'm being incredibly conservative on this, and he's not wrong, because I said something about gloves for tactical feedback. But if you can use this technology to inject signals as well as pull them out, possibly I could get tactical feedback with just a wristband. Folks, this stuff is coming much, much faster than I thought it would. John, how's your feeling on the progress on this?
So it's interesting, and let me talk about my own experience with my Apple Watch. Is I've actually disabled the technology, and the reason is that I felt like I looked like an oddball by sitting there and tapping, like this, as opposed to if I take my watch and I tap something, they have an idea what I'm doing. But if I'm walking around and I'm tapping my hands and things like that, then that's a little
Well,
odd, I
there
believe.
was a Dilbert cartoon about this years ago about somebody who had fingernail compute, and the guy's wandering
Yes,
around with a virtual reality
right.
headset. And he goes, "Oh, sorry, this other guy said, oh, I'm just a moron. That's crazy. I often get,
The good news is that
confused to be
they're
an
thinking about
engineer."
this. They're thinking about this, and they're going to find the way where it is a little bit more natural. So on the Apple side, with my AirPods Pro, I have the ability to nod or shake my head if I want to dismiss or acknowledge something, and I feel that's a bit more natural. If I'm in an elevator and there's four other people in there, and I kind of do this, that doesn't really draw a lot of attention, as opposed to if I'm going like this. Even if the hand's down at my side, that might draw more attention and seem, might make somebody feel uncomfortable. If I nod my head or do something along those lines, then I think it's a little more natural.
But it's really interesting because if they got this to work here, obviously the next step is to start looking at input for your legs. Gaming will drive this,
Correct.
certainly. And then, you point out the thing with your AirPods. That's just a simple accelerometer trick, right? Accelerometers are cheap. And another thing that's not in our show notes, but Google announced, I think it was last week, that they were able to detect earthquakes by analyzing accelerometers in Android phones before they got to you.
Yeah.
That's how their distributed network is working. So if you take and apply that to your body movements, well, I think 2035, we may have full rigs that do this.
Yeah, I agree.
So this is great news.
So
Why do we
for those of you that are wondering what we're talking about, I'll put a link if you're on YouTube, a link above Lou's head to
Yeah.
hot takes that we're doing. There's a whole series on the convergence of 3 or 4 different key technologies with super intelligence, artificial general intelligence, quantum compute, unlimited or cheap energy in the possible form of nuclear fusion, a few other things coming together by 2035. What the future of IT, both for corporate IT, education IT, K-12, higher ed, medical IT, as IT professionals, whoever we support, what those technologies will look like. And we're going to do a different episode on each of those fields in 2045 and in 2055, and what we think that those technologies will look like with the help of AI giving us those predictions. So,
and we're
it's
absolutely going to keep, I'm sorry, absolutely keep talking to you about this stuff, because who do they call when your mouse goes sideways or a keyboard goes sideways? Who do you think they're going to call? Right?
Exactly.
You're gonna have to do help desks on this thing. So, John, can I give out like one more piece of good news?
Sure.
Am I allowed to do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's mostly good news. It's pretty much good news today. Let me give you a quick security good news. And this is, you're like, what in the world is up with this? Well, congratulations. We now have something that is not a CVE of the week, because it looks like they got it before it could come one. This is called TapTrap. And what it does is it affects Android up to Android 16. Malicious apps exploit screen transition animations. So why are we not doing a CV of the week on it? Well, the good news is it was patched in browsers. If you're running Graphene OS, which is a fork of Android reference, it's already been patched there. Google hasn't issued their own patch yet, which is why I wanted to get this out there. But the cure for this is really simple. Turn off system animation. If you have an Android phone right now and you're running on the main line, or your Samsung or whatever, you haven't, turn off system animations. If you do that, this bug cannot impact you. What does it do? Essentially, it abuses the permissions inside of the type checking, inside of the animation widgets, and it can pop up invisible windows in front of your existing screen and make you do things, right? So it can trigger a system prompt or gather or another app screen using a custom animation that's invisible. Basically, it can execute anything that you can execute as a user by doing an overlay. It has been tested. And what's really interesting about this is I picked up on this bug, and then I found out they had a complete website on it, which is unusual and very cool, right? So it can, the really big nastiness about this bug is that it can be used to set the stage for other attacks, right? By opening up locations, unblocking a malicious website, turning on camera and microphone access, stuff like that. So neat. All you have to do is turn off system animations until they fix it. All right. So get ahead of the curve for once. Let's not get hacked. And just, if you have an Android phone and you're not running Graphene OS, the latest version, turn off system animations. The next time the next security updates come through, read the security update, make sure they patch that bug, because Google knows about this and they haven't patched it yet. So be explicit about that. And I think that's really about it for us, man.
Well, yeah, I just want to take a quick comment on this. This is how security is supposed to work, and CVE are supposed to work. Is something comes out, the owner acknowledges it and does their best to give you a workaround, even if they can't patch it yet. And we've got 2 outstanding situations out there right now that are still not patched. One's probably never going to be patched, and that we're talking about Ruckus, and
Sonic Wall.
and Sonic Wall. And those are just incredibly frustrating. And the lack of communication, even though it's been acknowledged to some degree, but the general lack of any kind of guidance and anything else other than, in SonicWall's case, upgrade to the newest version of hardware is really frustrating. Here's somebody taking it seriously. They're jumping in and they're saying, here's the best thing you can do. We may not like the fact you have to turn off the animations, but that's not really functional. At least you have a way to keep using your device without being vulnerable. And then once they've fixed it, then you can turn on the animations again. Matter of fact, I would say that they should just make the next update, if it doesn't have a patch, turn off the animations by default so that you're not.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other thing. But Lou, you are right. That is going to wrap up today's episode. And we do want to hear what you think. What do you think about all of the technology that we talked about today? How do you feel about the Google OSS rebuild? I think that's actually the most exciting thing that we talked about today. But anything else? Are there other topics that you want us to talk about? Send email to feedback@itsparkcast.com or hit us up on X at @itsparkcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can leave a comment down below. We read every piece of feedback and every comment that we get. We respond to most. And if it's particularly insightful, we'll read it out when we're recording so that you can hear your name and your comment there. Make sure that you hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so that you never miss an episode. And with that, from the world of enterprise IT, take care.
See you on the next one.